Our story starts here along Castle Street with the murder of 16-year-old Shane Simpson. The gang-related killing caused entrepreneur George Taylor to ask what can be done to stop the violence. His solution: give jobs and opportunities to gang members. And today that is coming together as Tru Colors Brewing. It's a big leap. Gang leaders brought together by an entrepreneur out skydiving. Their first time in a plane, and they jumped out. If you're surprised to see gang members doing this, just wait till you hear what's coming down the pipeline.
I met George Taylor around a year ago, and he told me that he wanted to start this brewery, and he wanted, gang leaders to come in and be a part of it.
Did you think that sounded insane when you first started?
I thought it was pretty crazy.
Corey Risborn, also known as Blanco Dinero, is part of a gang called the 1090 Boys. He's also one of the first men George Taylor recruited to be part of Tru Colors Brewing, a brewery hiring gang members. We followed Corey as he conducted surveys in Wilmington's North Side, part of a Tru Colors project to eventually bring a restaurant to the neighborhood.
How many times a month do you eat out at a restaurant?
He knows everyone we meet. It's like being with the mayor of the North Side. So many people like and respect Corey. They watched him grow up here, become a bail bondsman, and they connect to his music.
Chasing my dream, but it's only a mirage. Big $1 million house, hella cars in the garage. I'm trying to figure when the good gon' pay off. Stepped out the streets, got a job and got laid off.
Corey's really open in his music. And when he talks to me about the ups and downs in his life and why being part of the brewery means so much to him.
I mean, a lot of things. My son, my biological father wasn't there, for me. I didn't meet him till I was 13. So, I want to make sure that I'm that much better than he was for my son. So this opportunity, I know how important it is. I know, how big of an opportunity this is to capitalize on. So for my son, my mother, I lost my mother when I was 16. And that was like my heart, the soul of my family and me. So ever since 16, I've been basically, going after it to make her proud as well. I lost a close friend when I was 22 years old, very close friend. And, a lot of close friends that got a lot of time. I got one friend that's doing 26 years in the federal penitentiary. So, knowing that all of those things are happening, my life can go either route, it's just something that, keeps you grounded, keeps you moving forward.
His life, moving in a different direction, and this man is the reason. George Taylor really didn't want to do this interview because he didn't want the story to be about him. But you can't tell the story of Tru Colors without hearing how it got started from George. He was so disturbed by the murder of 16-year-old Shane Simpson in 2015, he had to do something about it.
I called Ben David and I was like, hey, Ben, who's in charge of the Bloods? This is ridiculous. I want to meet him. And so Ben hooked me up with the gang task force guys who were awesome and hooked me up with who they believed was top dog in the Bloods at the time. And that was probably January or February of last year. And I spent the next, 8 months, I guess it is, hanging out with these guys, trying to understand what was driving them, what was driving the violence, what opportunities there were maybe to have some impact on it. I began to believe that it was much more of an economic issue than it was racial or social. And that's where we had the idea, well, what if we could create a business and hire gang members, as absurd as that might sound, right?
George's son is the CEO of Untapped, a popular app for craft beer lovers. With all the connections they have through the business, George says a brewery made the most sense.
We went out and we hired the leaders of all but one gang in town. We have leadership on our payroll now. And the deal was, we'll put you through a 2-month startup boot camp. We're going to teach you about life skills, business skills, and beer, because it's brewery, right? So you have to learn how to brew beer. We're going to pay you $50,000 to start, and if you do well, you'll make more, because I have to compete with street money.
But that wasn't the only part of the deal.
Really important part to us was, do you really have influence over the hundreds of gang members that are underneath you guys? Because if you don't, then I'm talking to the wrong guys, right? And so the deal was, in order for us to succeed and have this brewery, then you have to learn, you have to be disciplined, but you also have to show me you have control. So no shots fired from the moment you come on payroll, which would have been July 5th, forever. As long as I'm paying you, no shots fired in your group. And we weren't really sure what was going to happen. But since then, there hasn't been a shot fired by our group.
The men are from different sects of the Bloods, Crips, and Gangster Disciples. 9 gang leaders in all, with a lot of influence.
And we know of many bullets that would have flown were it not for our guys stopping it.
They're saying we don't do this anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I know of several times where things happen out on the streets, and the normal response would be to break out a gun and do something about it. And my guys will say, no, we don't do that anymore. We have opportunity. Put the gun down. I
heard something similar from Jonathan Smith, who goes by Beezy.
I've committed crimes before.
Do you think you'll ever commit a crime again?
Nah.
No.
Got too much to lose now.
We caught up with him while he was doing something most of you wouldn't expect to see gang members doing, volunteering at a food bank. This is what the next phase of the project looks like. It has the guys volunteering in the community, participating in team-building challenges, and putting together plans for the brewery. All of this requires them to put aside old rivalries.
How can I sit in the room with these guys and I know some of us don't like each other, but all right, you're gonna let that come between your future? It's not worth it.
But now you guys are like in your own brotherhood, I guess.
Now we got our own brotherhood. We stick together.
While they are in a new brotherhood, they have no plans to leave their old ones. And surprisingly, that's what George wants.
If they want to remain part of Tru Colors, they have to stay in the gang because we want influence, right? If they leave the gang, they lose influence. We want to have some conduit to send a message down to all the guys on the street of what's coming and what the opportunity is, and be patient.
The plan is to recruit up to 100 gang members for the brewery and restaurant. For Corey, that's another big reason he's in Tru Colors.
I always wanted better for where I'm from. I have a son. He'll be 5 in November. So, there's a lot of kids out there that look up to me. So, my mind was never to turn my back and look out for myself. It was always to build more opportunities. So now we have that opportunity to not only build ourselves up, but to lead the way. Turn your back and lead the way.
The way out of a life with limited choices to one that's just pouring with opportunity. Tru Colors hopes to start construction on the brewery in the coming months with the goal of opening in the first part of next year. And if this plan works here in Wilmington, they hope to expand this idea throughout the country.
We first told you here on WECT about plans in the works for a brewery that will hire gang members.
Tonight we're taking a closer look at the second chances this new business gives to the men who are involved. WECT's Ashley Kozakowski has followed along as the gang members work on plans for this brewery. Tell us, Ashley.
Well, my first report on Tru Colors Brewing was 8 minutes long. That's a long time in TV news where most of our reporters' stories are just 90 seconds. But still, there is a lot to this story and so much more to share with you about the brewery and its potential to make a real change in our community. Tru Colors hired gang leaders with the goal of stopping violence and building a profitable business that can give jobs and opportunity to even more gang members. Well, tonight, I want to introduce you to one of the men who is getting a second chance.
Nobody directly over the top.
Want to see a man in his element?
You're just going straight into the next level. You hear me?
Watch Stephen Barnett on the sidelines. Stephen coaches the Eagles. A team with a lot of talent and a lot of heart.
Hey, Cameron.
Even if they're just 5 to 7-year-olds. I followed Stephen and strapped a GoPro on one of his assistant coaches at this year's crosstown rivalry game.
Hit it, Joe. Hit it, Joe.
From the touchdowns
Bingo. Bingo.
to the injuries.
In your elbow, your funny bone. It ain't funny, is it? Huh?
No, it's not funny.
Come on, you got to get up. You can shake that off, man. Let's go, Zion.
When you see him on the field, he's a passionate coach. And with his kids, you can just tell he's a great father.
Hold on. How is it your money and I'm the one to go to work for it? See yourself.
That's why when Stephen, a member of the Bloods, opens up about his past, well, it's shocking.
2005 through 2007, I was incarcerated in New Hanover County Jail.
Stephen was in jail for killing another man. I looked in our archives and found the video of the day he confessed in court to manslaughter. He looks like a different person. He was a different person.
Do you regret that moment of your life?
Yeah and no. Yeah and no. I am the man that I am today because of that situation and that circumstance, but the fact that someone lost their life through that circumstance, that's the only part I regret about it.
The man who lost his life, George Murray, and Stephen stabbed each other the first time they clashed. The next time they met up,
I decided this time I would protect myself. Man, I protected myself.
Stephen took a plea deal in 2007. That meant he got out of jail after the 2 years he spent in lockup waiting for trial.
It made me make a decision about what I wanted in life. So that's another thing, man. I really had time to sit there and think and evaluate, man. Like, look, man, you headed in this direction. Look where it's gotten you at. If you are to get out of this situation, what are you going to do differently? And I made a conscious decision then, man, that I'd be pro-life for everybody. Everybody. No matter the hue, no matter the background, ethnicity, any of that, man. It's pro-life. Jeremiah, Zaya, JoJo, Gio.
Stephen found, though, turning your life around is easier said than done. He bounced around dead-end jobs over the past 10 years because once you have a felony, no one wants to hire you.
I was working on McDonald's third shift from 7 to 11. 4 kids, $8 an hour. That just wasn't getting it done for me. But I did it. I stuck it out because I knew that's all I had and I wasn't going to go back to the streets.
Then, a year ago, Stephen met this man, George Taylor, who is behind several startup businesses.
When I met Steve, we got to know each other. I liked him. I met his kids. I'm like, he can't be that bad because his kids are amazing, right? But I was like, I'll get you a job for $15 an hour. That's all he's looking for, because you're making $7 flipping a burger. After taxes, you're making nothing. You just can't do anything with it. I said, no worries, I'll get you a job. I know every CEO in this town. I can definitely get you a job. And so I called all my friends that were big companies that were CEOs, like, hey man, I got this guy. He's awesome. I really like him. I'd really appreciate it if you'd hire him. And the person would always say, oh yeah, no worries, send him over. I'd be happy to do it. Got to tell you this one thing. You know, he did this a few years ago. Oh, not sure I can do it. You know, and I totally get it. I'm not ragging on those guys at all. I get the issue. But the point was, like, if I can't get him a job for $15 an hour, he sure as hell ain't gonna get it himself.
Now, Stephen has a good-paying job. His employer is George. He's the force behind Tru Colors Brewing. It started with the gang-related murder of 16-year-old Shane Simpson in 2015. George wanted to do something to stop the violence. He spent a lot of time over the past few years with gang members, learning about what drives them and learning about what drives crime.
I began to believe that it was much more of an economic issue than it was racial or social. And that's where we had the idea, well, what if we could create a business and hire gang members, as absurd as that might sound, right?
Stephen's one of 9 gang leaders among the first hires at Tru Colors Brewing. They represent all but one of Wilmington's gangs.
The fact that we're building a brewery of all things from ground up, it's just astonishing to me, man. I wake up every day and it's a surreal feeling, like that I'm walking into an office that I'm a salaried employee now. Happy birthday to you. That we brought a group of guys together that under no circumstance probably would have been united with each other. That's just the type of stuff that I wake up. That's part of my job. That's part of my motivation, that I'm doing something so new and so different. It's so challenging, but it feels so good.
This is a hard question, but when you think about the man you killed and his family, do you think that they'll see this and say, well, he doesn't deserve that opportunity? Like, and what would you say to that?
I'm human. I've made some mistakes. And we're trying to make amends with the situation. We don't want it to ever be another situation that, such as Steve Barnett and the George Murray. Stay with me. Y'all stay with me.
Stephen's now in a situation where he can make a real impact.
Good job, fellas.
And prevent others from making the mistakes he did.
Good job, fellas. Good job.
By showing his true colors.
And Stephen tells me he would love to eventually coach high school football, but he's not sure if that's a possibility with his record. He hopes, though, through proving himself at Tru Colors, he'll get a chance. We first told you about plans for Tru Colors Brewing Company last year, a brewery that employs active gang members. The brewery isn't expected to open until later this year, but still, the company is bringing on even more men, offering them a second chance if they work for it. I got to catch up with some of the men who signed on for the Tru Colors apprenticeship program. Daquan Jacobs jackhammers cement on a construction site. Surrounded by the steel beams that are the foundation of a new bank. It was only a few months ago, Daquan was surrounded by something else. The walls of a federal prison.
Life is a learning experience. I learned from my mistakes, and it made me who I am today, a better person that's standing in front of you now.
His mistakes started when this baby-faced 21-year-old was in his teens. He was sent to prison for drug and gun crimes. While inside, he earned his GED.
People look at going to prison as a bad thing, but it was actually a good thing for me. I learned a lot. Like a lot of things that you wouldn't learn out here or in anybody's school. So it made me who I am today, a better person.
And trying to be a better person is what led him to the Tru Colors apprenticeship program. He heard about it while in prison and knew right away he wanted to get involved. Now he's one of 20 apprentices. Several construction companies partnered with Tru Colors to offer positions on job sites for the men. Before being placed, Tru Colors puts those apprentices through a month-long training course. It teaches them life and business skills.
How the guys doing?
They're doing good. They're doing good.
Jonathan Smith, one of the original Tru Colors hires, now runs that program.
We give you guys who we vetted. They've been through a nice process where we kind of figure out who they are, whether or not they're ready for change, whether or not they're ready to adapt to new things. And all these guys have been through that and successfully made it to the next step.
The program is a gateway to a full-time position with Tru Colors. Once the apprentices complete the course and 2 months of manual labor, they can apply for a job with the team.
It feels good to see the same people just like me get an opportunity and take advantage of it.
And who are we going to see here?
Jonathan and I drove to one of the job sites to meet another apprentice, Kevon Murphy.
Yeah, every day I try to learn something new out here.
He grew up in Creekwood. His apprenticeship has him back in the community, helping with construction on new apartment buildings.
Oh, I'm doing good out here. I love it out here. Like last week, I forgot to even go on break because I was just trying to get something done. Like when you're doing something, you lose the time and stuff.
Kevon, who's in a gang called GD, says part of the training to get him ready for manual labor had him working out daily and doing yoga.
I do a little bit at home just to stretch my muscle when I get off of work.
Well, I'm sure you get sore on a job.
Yeah, you get sore out here. In the office, they got us physically and mentally ready for this site. You know, everybody is willing to learn new things out here, you know, and we're just not as bad as everybody think we are. That's the first thing Kelly, the project manager here, he said, I don't care what you did in the past, as long as you could be on time and get the job done.
Both of these apprentices are getting glowing reviews from their supervisors. Here's what Daquan's superintendent, Justin Russo, said about his job performance.
He's working too hard, if that's such a thing. He's just killing it.
Justin admits he was a bit skeptical when he first heard Monteith Construction signed on for this, but now he's sold.
A lot of these gang members are just young kids who just didn't have an opportunity, and really all they need is an opportunity to shine. They're obviously very smart and talented individuals, and we just needed to give them a platform.
A platform, Daquan says, will keep him on the right path. He says the only way he's going back to prison is as a motivational speaker. And here's what he would tell those on the inside.
Definitely hope for you out here that you do not have to turn back to the streets. You can find a job. All you have to do is try, apply yourself, and apply your knowledge and learn all the trades that they offer in prison so you can come out here and put it to use.
So as Daquan hammers away at his construction job, he's not just building a bank, he's building a stronger future. Tru Colors is still looking for a space for its brewery, and in the meantime, the company hopes more builders will sign on to partner with the apprenticeship program. Tru Colors pays the apprentices' salaries, so the builders just have to offer a place and some guidance to the workers.